So good evening, everyone. I'm Lanny Cohen. I'm Capgemini's Chief Innovation Officer, and it's a pleasure to have all of you here this evening. We always like to start with a simple question. For how many people is this your first What's Now San Francisco event? Oh, not too many. That's good. So a lot of repeaters here. Well, just to get the evening kicked off, my team asked me if I would be brief tonight. And I said I would be brief. Then I said I wouldn't be brief. And then I started confusing myself if I would be brief or I wouldn't be brief. And then I had to walk it back. So I'm going to try to be a little bit brief, okay? So just bear with me. This is, Brad, did you like that one? Where's Brad? Yeah, I made that up myself. So anyways, welcome everyone, seriously. And this is a very special week for Capgemini, and it's a perfect week to have our What's Now event. I think for those of you who've been to some of our previous What's Now, we had mentioned we're the global innovation partner for the HSBC Rugby Sevens World Cup, which is occurring this weekend in San Francisco. And we've been involved with World Rugby now for this entire year of Rugby Sevens, and it's been an absolutely incredible experience for all of us. We've learned a lot. We've partnered on some amazing things. We've worked closely with World Rugby to build some apps that are going to be used this weekend and it'll be adopted as part of World Rugby's technology portfolio. And what we're going to do tonight is, before I introduce Pete and Chris, we're going to do a couple things related to World Rugby. But a couple things first. There are some people in the audience that are either from World Rugby or part of the World Rugby Observer Program that took place today. So if you're in the audience, I thought you were, can you guys maybe just stand for a second and be acknowledged? And if you're not, don't stand. Okay, so, all right, there you go. Thanks everyone. So that's one thing. The other thing I want to announce is we're having, it started yesterday afternoon, and it's going to run actually through Friday and then over breakfast Saturday and Sunday before the World Cup matches begin. We have a whole series of programs that we're calling Applied Innovation Exchanges. And they're very fast-paced, very provocative, very leading-edge subjects across the market. So just for example, yesterday we had the head of social impact from Lyft with us. This afternoon we had the head of talent from Tesla with us. We had the head of product management from Optimizely here today as well. In addition, we've had a number of Capgemini's new business acquisitions that have been with us as well. So if any of you'd like to register for any part of exchanges for tomorrow, for Friday, for Saturday breakfast or Sunday breakfast, when we're done with the program, just go out to the front desk and someone can help you register for those programs the remainder of the week. I think you'll find them fascinating if you can join us, okay? The other thing I want to do now is I want to introduce one of my colleagues. He's the head of branding for Capgemini, Emmanuel Lochan, who's been a huge sponsor of the Applied Innovation Exchange program. He's been at the forefront of Capgemini's new branding program, and he's also been very, very instrumental in our relationship with World Rugby. So, Emmanuel, please join us.
Thanks, Annie.
And he's also coming off a high from Bastille Day, in the France winning the World Cup. So he's a little full of himself right now, but it's okay.
I was not planning to mention it at all, so I don't. I just posted a picture of you, Lenny, on LinkedIn, and this one is going to be famous, I'm sure, with your cap. All right, so just wanted to introduce very quickly and very briefly. We organized with Lani. He was our main sponsor on the startup contest that we started in January. And one of the reward for the winners of the startup contest was to come here in San Francisco for this week and to get the opportunity to pitch their solutions. So we have got two startups. One is from Los Angeles, Cadeau Sport, and the other one is from France, Pop and Link. And you may have been briefed just before the beginning of the session by some of our colleagues to enable the Pop and Link solution. So we are going to test it tonight. So on top of an amazing program with Peter, you will have the opportunity to test this new solution, which is a connected device solution, the POP. And you will have the opportunity to take part in polls, answering questions, surveys, and also you will have the possibility to plug your questions during the first part of the session so that Peter can take over and potentially use these questions in the second part. If you don't have access to the POP, to Pop and Link, well, we are not going to get any disturbance in the first part, but we will be able to pitch you and to explain you what is Pop and Link after the conference. Thank you very much. Enjoy the conference.
Okay, thanks, Emmanuel. In case you didn't pick it up, Emmanuel grew up on the East Bay, so he's a local guy. Anyways, thanks, Emmanuel. So let me turn the program over to Pete now. We've got an incredible program tonight. In the spirit of rugby and sports and everything else going on, we wanted to put together a program tonight that would feature sports and tech. And I think, as usual, Pete and his team hit it out of the park. We've got a great speaker tonight, great speakers tonight, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So, Pete, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, folks. Welcome. And thank you, Lanny, and thank you, Capgemini. I mean, there's folks from out of town. They're coming from all over the world, actually, for this rugby gathering, and some of them are here tonight. So to just put this in a little context, why this thanks is deserved. I will just say I've been in the region here for a long time. I came early 90s to Wired Magazine, which you can basically see when it was just starting. You can see the building right outside the window here. And I've been around for the last 25 years. And when Lanny and Capgemini opened up this lab about several years ago, they talked to me and they said, well, what would you do to actually, what can we do to actually help the community, to be constructive members of the community, not taking, but kind of giving? And I said, why don't you fund, we started talking about this series, which we've now, the result of that conversation and that kind of idea and their generosity was to build this series over the last several years. And what it's enabled is us to pull together this multidisciplinary network of folks month after month after month, and to actually go systematically through all these areas of innovation in the Bay Area and have these featured speakers. And so it's been it's been great. And thank you so much for that. And thanks for Capgemini, who really has done this. Tonight's topic, we're swinging to sports. Every month, we kind of go to a different area. And honestly, it's been into kind of high-tech spaces. But this time, we're talking about sports. And in fact, it's how innovation is just exploding in the sports space. Just like many fields, it's being driven by a lot of new adoption of a lot of new technologies. And if you had to think of one particular sport, at least in professional sports, that is really on the front edge of this, it would have to be professional basketball, which we're going to get into a little bit here. And if you really had to take one team that has been really on the front edge of driving innovation in this space, it's actually the Sacramento Kings. Now, I know there might be some Golden State Warriors fans here. And for those who are out of town, and just put it in context, Sacramento is about, roughly a 90-minute drive from here. In the Bay Area here, there's people who commute in from there. And about 5 years ago, the team was going to lose its professional sports team. And in fact, a group of technology entrepreneurs, very successful ones, decided to buy it and bought the company and bought the team. And as part of that, they actually were charged with building a new state-of-the-art stadium. And the stadium, in fact, is built. And in 2017, it was literally awarded by the Sports Technology Awards as literally the best elite global stadium in the world for any sport, actually. And so because of that, we've decided let's really focus on where the cutting edge is in this space, and let's talk to folks from the Kings. Turns out we're going to have two folks from the Kings. One is Chris Kelly. Now, Chris is one of these successful entrepreneurs who actually is in the ownership group, and he's on the executive board. Chris also has an interesting background in that he was a very early guy into Facebook. He was the first general counsel, he was the head of global policy, and he was the first chief privacy officer for Facebook in those early years where he kind of took it from a join when they were just out of the dorm room kind of scene in early Palo Alto into essentially the next 5 years they're on the road to the company that they are today. So he, as an owner as well, is going to actually be talking to us today. That's great. He's also, we've got Ryan Montoya, who is the Chief Technology Officer of the Kings, and he is the guy who daily, full-time, is working on all the tech issues and all the things they're doing, not just the stadium, but all kinds of crazy stuff they're doing there. They're using Bitcoin, they've got drones going, all kinds of stuff we're going to talk about today. So without any further delay, let's get the two of them out here and have a really good conversation. Come on out, guys. Good to see you. Nice.
All right.
This is Chris. It's Ryan. So Chris, let's start off with you. And for those who don't know the story, give us a little bit of background on how the group came together to actually buy the Kings, and a little bit about that group, which is really a Silicon Valley tech crew, really, is what it was.
There's quite our lead partner, Vivek Ranadive, founded Tibco Software and ran it for years and very successfully, and it's a great technologist to work with. And then one of our other key partners is Paul Jacobs, who until recently was the chairman of Qualcomm, the executive chairman of Qualcomm, and a San Diego guy, but we reached around the state to make sure that we could save the team for the capital of what I see as the most important state in the most important country in the world. And it was odd that they wouldn't have a professional sports team. There were a variety of factors that went into how that was all going to work out and how the group came together. It was a complex, long-fought battle. There was actually another group had agreed with the former owners, the Maloofs, to buy the team and move them to Seattle and make them the Supersonics again. And so we had to put together a backup deal. And eventually, when relocation was voted down by the NBA, we were able to swoop in, present it. They held our feet to the fire on commitments around getting an arena built quickly, on site control of that space, and there were all sorts of machinations around that. A great set of learning about little bit of everything in that process. But with great partners, we were able to get that done and to get the arena built in almost record time. And from those first planning meetings that we had, sitting at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Sacramento, for those of you who've been to Sacramento, we sat in those conference rooms with architects and picking everything out, and wanted to build an iconic building the entire time. That was Vivek's charge, and all of our conversations were about how can we build something that would be a work of art and beautiful. And then with the background that we had in technology, how could we make it the most advanced arena in the world?
We're going to get in a little bit here to actually, getting a little, we'll be actually showing a little video of that and some background slides here in a minute here. What is it with the technology world's obsession with basketball? I mean, when you think about it, Ballmer just bought the Clippers, and we've got Ted Leonis and the Wizards.
And Ballmer was a critical part of that group that was going to buy the Kings and move them to Seattle, too.
Exactly,
so.
but there seems to be this preponderance of tech people wanting basketball, not football, not any of these other places, but it's a basketball day. Any thoughts on why is that?
There are a number of different things that go into it. One is that it's the growth sport right now, and it's simple to play, it's simple to understand, it has a global reach, and I think that it's fast-paced, it's enjoyable, and it's very accessible too. So I think that all of those things go into it, and then also I think that the fact that a number of other technology leaders have stepped in over time, whether it's Paul Allen with the Trailblazers from a long time ago, older Microsoft,
right.
One of the Microsoft founders, to our group, to some of the various technology players who stepped into the Warriors organization with Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, a great sort of marriage of Silicon Valley and Hollywood there too.
Yeah.
We've been much more kind of hardcore technology focused as a group, but I think we've managed to make a pretty entertaining product and put a pretty entertaining product together too.
Is there a cultural thing going on there though? There's a kind of interesting kind of tech is migrating to these basketball teams. At the same time, you've got a football kind of culture, the different set of owners, and there's a lot of interesting cultural differentiations there. I'm just curious, is there anything going on there that's a kind of a
I think that if you look at where everything is trending in the future, football will have its own challenges. Baseball, and I'm still a huge baseball and football fan, but they each have their own challenges. Whereas basketball really has a lot of green fields in front of it, both again because of the accessibility, and because I think that we've tried to articulate a vision of how sports can bring people together, and the other sports maybe haven't done that quite as well as we have at this point. I mean, there's always room to do better, but we just think that there's a lot of potential for sports as a communal and sharing event, and you want to build great spaces to do that in, and you want to be able to reach out with technology around the world to drive that. And I see that as part of the continuation of the mission that we had at Facebook, is reaching out around the world and allowing people to connect.
So the stadium is the most iconic version of this. Let's go to you, Ryan, a little bit. And I think to start off, do we want us to do your little video here to start to do this?
Yeah, that's great. I think
and
it's
then
a
we
great
can talk
intro.
through it. There's a little video here that to give people. I actually was up there a few weeks ago, courtesy of these folks, and Ryan gave me this fantastic walk through the place. But until you actually see it, it's kind of hard to talk about it. So why don't we're going to just step to the side here and let you watch this, and then Ryan will walk you through some of the features of this. This is the overview here, but let's just take a little look at what they got going up there in Sacramento.
Golden One Center is the most technologically advanced and sustainable arena in the world. Through innovative solutions and next-generation hardware, Golden One Center has created an unmatched and enhanced fan experience. Wired magazine recently called Golden One Center pretty much a giant Tesla, and the New York Times has hailed the arena as the most technologically advanced arena in the world. Through a first-of-its-kind dual-mode mobile app, fans are prepared with everything they need for a game night. The Kings and Golden One Center app provides fans with real-time information about the venue, traffic, in-arena experience upgrades, and the team like never before. It features the NBA's first chatbot, Kai, King's artificial intelligence, to answer fans' questions. Powering the fan experience resides in the arena's 6,000 square foot next-generation command center, housing a Tier 4 data center, a first-of-its-kind 4K broadcast control room, and the arena's central nervous system, Mission Control, where various teams make use of real-time information to ensure the best possible fan experience. The arena is also the first implementation in the world of multi-mode wideband fiber, allowing for lightning-fast communication between the arena's processing computers. Powering the arena is a 200 gigabit per second internet connection, 17,000 times faster than the average home connection. Complementing the arena Wi-Fi is an advanced distributed antenna system, ensuring that every cell phone has reception. The arena is home to the NBA's most advanced video board. This 4K Ultra HD screen features over 32 million pixels and has 4 times the clarity of a standard HD TV. The board spans the length of the court and provides spectacular views all around the arena. Around the arena, 700 additional screens complement the center-hung 6,100 square foot video board. The infrastructure at Golden One Center is future-proofed, meaning it's built to last for years to come. With over 1,000 access points, beacons, and sensors, the only limits on the network at Golden One Center are the user's devices. With over 1,000 miles of cable and an infrastructure designed to update with technology, Golden One Center is the first Coliseum of the 21st century.
Pretty impressive. It's interesting, and again, I got a tour through that, including watching the little Star Wars kind of warriors guarding the servers there. But actually, why don't we walk through just some of the features there, so you can elaborate a little bit here. The first one, though, I think you wanted to talk about is the core infrastructure. Could you just talk a little bit about what you're able to do given this thing now?
So the ownership group really had 4 objectives when we were designing the arena. The first is it had to be the world's most iconic. So we have those giant aircraft hangar doors, the same type of doors that you have at SpaceX. We have the ability to open and close those on any given night. In fact, for the California Classic, We had an indoor-outdoor concert with Little John. So iconic. Second, it had to be the most sustainable. So we were the world's first LEED Platinum sustainable building, sporting venue, first in the world. So we get 100% of our power from the sun. We've got solar panels on top of the roof. All of our food is sourced within 150 miles, and so on. Third, it had to be the most technologically advanced. Wired magazine has called it a giant Tesla. Fast Company has called us the most innovative company in sports. New York Times, Wall Street Journal have all said that our ownership group is the most tech-savvy ownership group in the world. And fourth, we wanted to be able to use data to personalize the fan experience, but also to remove all the friction so that we could deliver the best fan experience in the world. So that was the vision for the arena, and we were able to not only to deliver, but I believe create the blueprint for other arenas and stadiums. And in fact, we've had over 150 teams throughout the world come to the arena, and we've opened it up so that we're open source, and we've shared it with everyone so that everyone can iterate and they can be better so that they can deliver the best fan experience as well. At the core of this is Vivek was known for creating the software bus. And at the core of our building is a software bus. And really, the software bus is a comprehensive event processing engine. If something happens here, there's a reaction here. So as you saw in the video, we have a mission control center. And in that mission control center, that's really the manifestation of that bus. So in order to deliver all of the technology, we needed to get the basics done. So as you saw in the video, 2 100 gig pipes that come into the building. That's the same amount of bandwidth for 17,000 homes. We have that for 17,000 fans. That is then distributed to over 3,000 edge devices. That's what makes it the world's smartest arena. So what that equates to is about 250,000 Instagram photos per second or 500,000 Snapchats per second. But we didn't build.
Hit it either.
Yeah. The network is sometimes bored. But but this is really all about ensuring that our fans had the best experience, that they could come to the game and not worry about parking, not worrying about the traffic, not to worry about how they're going to pay for parking, so that all they had to focus on is getting to their seats. And so what we did is, through the technology, through data, removed all that friction so that our fans could enjoy the experience.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to run through a couple things here. The screen. What's going on with that screen? It is like...
What you're seeing now is the world's largest indoor 4K scoreboard. What we did was that, a couple stats about it. So it's the length of an 18-wheeler truck. You take that truck, you stack another on top of it. That's the height. The upper ribbon board alone is the height of our GM, Vlade Divac. You may have seen the Dallas Cowboys scoreboard, which is a large scoreboard for outdoors. That has 25 million pixels. This has 38 million pixels. And just as we did with everything, we wanted to really look at it from the fan perspective and really to infuse the UI and UX. So we brought in a former Disney Imagineer to actually design the scoreboard. One thing we noticed is that a lot of the scoreboards throughout the world, they're getting larger and bulkier, but there was no design intent behind it. So the Disney Imagineer and his crew looked at thousands of hours of how everyone interacted with it, from the players to the coaches to the fans. And the result is the scoreboard. It looks like a cockpit, and it was designed specifically for that. Our fans, like fighter pilots, only have to move their eyes 5 degrees in either direction to either see the live game or the advanced stats. Our coaches and players, when our players are running up and down the court, the vertex of that scoreboard is about 2 feet. That allows them to see the live game or the stats. So everything that we that we did with the arena was really designed to take it to another level and to really focus on that fan experience.
So for those of you who've been to AT&T Stadium in Dallas, their board is almost distracting from watching the game, whereas we wanted this to be a much more integrated experience.
Totally got it. I'm just going to go through a couple features, but mostly we're going to get to a discussion after this. But the app. So talk more about that. I mean, people hear apps about all kinds of stuff, but your app does what?
So
What are you doing that others
the
aren't?
goal with the app was really to put a remote control into the hands of every fan at the arena. In our app alone, we have over 40 integrations into our app. So the app is really a bus. Within that app, the fans have everything at their fingertips. They have the ability to pay for parking. They have the ability to upgrade their seats. They have the ability to order food. There's even a chatbot in the app. We've won several awards for the app because we actually combined the arena with the team. And so everything is at the fans' fingers, at their fingertips.
When you say the fan, what do you mean to integrate the fan with the
A
team?
lot of other venues, they have separate apps,
Uh-huh.
and so when you're going to a facility, you want to pay for parking, but you have to go to the stadium app, but you also want to find the news about the team, so you have to go to the team app. Everything's combined, so once you log into one app, all of your data and credentials carry with you.
Got you. And then the final thing is those Star Wars dudes. What's going on with them, and a little bit about the
Data center. Yeah, so we had a mission to build the technology so that not only that we could scale, but we could also future-proof. So we built the data center to the specs of a Tier 4 data center, the same type of data center you find at Facebook, Google, Amazon. We've got that in the arena, and in that we house everything with all of our technology. We have over 1,000 miles of Cat 6A cable that connects to over 3,000 edge devices. In that facility, we announced a couple weeks ago that we were the first team to actually mine Ethereum. So not only did we accept Bitcoin in 2014, but we're actually mining Ethereum. But more importantly, what we're doing is we are taking that Ethereum and we're giving it back to a local group called Build Black. So all the proceeds are going to help, education, scholarship, et cetera. So using technology to do good and give back to our community.
So okay. But for folks that are just want to go a little slower on that, when you say you're mining Ethereum, could you just play that out a little bit and also explain a little bit what that means by people can use Bitcoin in your space, just for elaborate a little bit on that.
Just a very basic understanding of blockchain, it's really a trust system, right? And in order for that trust system to work, you need computers on a network to ensure that trust. So what we've essentially done is we've put computers on the network, and they're doing these complex mathematical algorithms, because we're doing that, we get awarded with Ethereum, a small fraction of Ethereum every day. At the end of the month, we end up with a certain amount, and then that amount we then give back to the community.
And when you said in 2014 you accepted Bitcoin, meaning people could go literally in the stadium and buy a Coke with that or something?
Yes, and this is a great thing about our ownership group is that, you don't have to explain to Chris what Bitcoin is. You don't have to, and that's often the challenge, I think, with people in my position is that you have to go to the CEOs and you have to go to the owners and, well, here's Bitcoin or here's Ethereum, here's a blockchain. And these guys already know. What they're asking me is, why aren't we doing more? Or why haven't you thought about doing it this way? So that's never been a challenge for us. So back when the new ownership came in, they gave us a mission. Although we're going to focus on the arena, in the meantime, how do we start utilizing technology? How do we start testing technology? And so out of that, first team to use drones, first team to use Google Glass, first team to use virtual reality. We actually sold out all our suites and lofts using virtual reality. That was in 2014, 2015. And so
just to slow that down and jump in anytime. Yeah. Meaning you use virtual reality so you could walk through a room that wasn't built yet in an arena that was under construction.
That's correct. And then and so early on, with regards to the question about Bitcoin, that was just an example of ownership group asking us, well, are we doing something with cryptocurrency? And of course we are. So we started accepting we started to accept Bitcoin in 2014, and it was amazing the interest and the world coverage that we got from accepting Bitcoin. And the result was people throughout the world were buying Kings gear. at the time. At that time, Bitcoin was worth about $800, and then it went up to about $1,200. And people were really buying season tickets. They were buying hats. They were buying everything, and all over the world, just buying this stuff. I think a lot of them probably regret it now, especially in November, December this past year when it went to $19,000. Yeah.
Well, so while we're talking about this, so Chris, you're one of the top crew that's the executive board on the leadership group. So what's going through your head of like why are you doing that? Is it just it's fun, you're techies, you like it, or is there like business reasons, or is there it gets exposure the way he was saying?
It fits in a number of different buckets for us. I mean, I think we all have an orientation towards community, and that Vivek has said from the beginning that sports teams are social networks. That we have this sort of group of Kings fans throughout the world, and we're also an important part of the NBA's outreach, especially into India, with 3 of our partners being first-generation Indian American immigrants. That outreach that we do, that being at the technological edge of things, is incredibly important to all of us. In my other businesses, I'm exploring the use of blockchain, for organizer-owned voting records and outreach and things like that. But it's exciting to see it in easily accessible contexts, and with some of the work that we've done on how the UN is trying to use blockchain for good in a number of different ways, being able to do this on a more local level with the Build Black Coalition, and to have it's exciting to have these rigs when we build a tier 4 data center, when we do these sort of amazing technological feats that Ryan and his team were able to put together. We want to be able to leverage that in new and upgradable ways, and putting mining equipment in that data center was an easy way to, and an exciting way to do this. So we can feed all of these things together, and they all tell the story that we are very much oriented towards, which is, sports teams and community building organizations should be working together for the common good. That's one of the things that we're trying to do with our stewardship of the team.
I was going to march to one more thing, but when you said that, for those that might not know, could you guys give us the story of what happened when you had that police shooting up in Sacramento? And there was, did you tell the story? And I could bungle it and try to tell it, but this is going to get, it shows kind of the relationship to the community in a way that's kind of interesting.
So when Stephon Clark was shot by Sacramento police in which one was that? April, May?
April.
Oh, it was March. Yeah, I can't remember exactly the dates. There were protests that the Black Lives Matter Sacramento group put together, and we and our players and our fans, I think, understood why those protests were going on, and they started and they blocked I-5 off of downtown, and then they moved to the arena, and we were able to. We ultimately decided that we wanted to make sure that the peace was kept. And we ended up sort of closing the doors to the arena, and unfortunately, a lot of our fans couldn't get to the game. The NBA said that we should play the game, and we talked with players and everyone else about that. But we felt that we needed to say something, and Vivek got up after the game and said that we understood why people were protesting, and that how this is an important recognition to say that it's a problem that we have to solve over time, and be able to have more peaceful solutions in our community, and we think that was very well received. And
like 1,000 people,
2,500, about 2,500 people in that first game, and the following Monday there was another game where there was conversations and a protest at the city council chamber, which is very close to the arena, and there was actually a second protest after a Sunday game went without incident. And look, we wanted to make sure that fans get to the game, and we were able to to assure that in further games. But we were very comfortable stepping up and saying that we understand why communities rise up in protest at injustice, and that's a conversation that we should be having very openly.
Yeah, unlike some other leagues think about this. Well, okay, so I want to move just quickly here, and we're going to eventually get to interaction with you folks, so do think about your questions here. And if you do have that app on, for those of you that loaded up ahead of this, give me a question. I can kind of look it out here on the pad. So this is another thing. I mean, I don't know how much people are really tracking the front edge of technology in sports, but one of the things that's quite amazing about this is there's a whole parallel universe of video game teams, and you guys have a literal, in the stadium you have this. Why don't you describe it, Ryan? What is going on here?
So we're the first sports team in the world to actually have a dedicated esports training facility in our arena. And so, look, you can see the numbers. 23 billion minutes of Twitch video are watched every single month.
Wait, say that one more time.
23 billion.
23 billion
Yes.
minutes of
Yes.
Twitch a month.
Yes. Esports industry is $1 billion industry. People are saying it's not quite $1 billion, but it's there. And it will be a lot more than that in the next coming years. But again, once again, it's one of those things where we want to be on the forefront, but also the NBA in general with Adam Silver's leadership, he also wants everyone to be at the forefront of this, because just as the esports community can benefit from a professional team, we can also benefit from what they're doing in esports. Adam Silver, Vivek, Chris have all alluded to this. You know, you can go to Twitch and you can see multiple broadcasts. You can not only from the broadcasters at the arena, but you can actually see your friend down the street or an expert, 15-year-old broadcasting the game. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can learn from esports that you can bring into the NBA, vice versa. And so we are one of 17 teams to participate in the inaugural season of the NBA 2K League. So the NBA 2K League is simply that. It's a team of professional esports players who play the game of basketball in a video game. So just as we have a star center, we also have a star center on the esports team. So we have these professional athletes who we had a draft, we had a combine, we brought them to Sacramento. They're professional athletes, young people who are practicing every day. They've got a coach. They live in a house just outside Sacramento. And just as we want to provide the best for our professional NBA team, we also want to do the best for our esports team.
Including especially this training facility in the arena, which is really something else.
I'll tell you, just when I was there to watch the California Classic, which is, you walk by and it's all the kind of younger NBA players or the rookies or the early folks that are moving up into the big league. So you walk past those guys near the locker room, they're about 7 feet, right, or 6 something. Then I walked into the training room, and then here came the whole crew of, must have been 17 to 18 to 20-year-olds of like little guys, and they all were kind of geared up, ready for their training in this room. It was quite an interesting.
Yeah, and it's definitely fascinating. These guys will go out into the community. They'll go to a restaurant, and they'll have a long line of kids waiting for the autographs. We had some of these. Yeah. We've had some of the other esports celebrities come to our games, and they've got a line longer than some of the professional sports players.
And we've moved with, another member of our ownership group, Shaq, is our GM for our 2K league. So he stepped in a couple of instances too.
He'd bring back the 7 foot.
And Shaq brings back the 7 foot. The 7 foot.
Shaquille O'Neal, who's part of the ownership group.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. So anyhow, it's fascinating in that way. Couple last things here as we're starting to kind of lay out the pieces that would be interesting to get interaction from folks here. Is this esports? I wanted to get back to this idea of a global outreach. In particular, like you said, there's that outreach to India, which you don't normally associate with basketball. You are seeing a lot more in China. But is this esports part of that strategy, or what are the strategies that you're adopting to kind of go global with what has been up to now a pretty American league, a more American sport? And as part of that, a lot of people here and from different businesses not in sports is just, what are you learning that actually might be interesting about for folks that are trying to go global, trying to actually take a reach out?
The NBA has had a very aggressive international expansion going on for some time, and teams in the main league haven't ended up over there. We do have the global games, which we participated in preseason in 2015 2014. It was 2014, I think, that we went over with the Brooklyn Nets to Shanghai and Beijing. When we went on that trip, one of the things that I found that was stunning to me was that there are 400 people who work for NBA China. It's a large business enterprise operating over there, and obviously, with having Yao Ming having played the game for as long as he does, and still being very involved in the league as the owner of the Shanghai Sharks, and supporting a lot of activity in the league. China's basketball crazy in a way that India is not yet, but we think we'll get there. And so the outreach that's gone on around the world, and with the Kings, when they were players, our GM and assistant GM, Vlade Divac and Pedro Stojakovic, both hail from Serbia, and so we've got a great outreach into Europe as well. But they're, in European basketball leagues, have really sort of, skyrocketed in popularity. So the game has had reach around the world for quite some time, and that's, I think, an aggressive part of our future and what we see. That ability to bring people together is what the sport's supposed to be about.
And it seems to be going. I want to return to a couple last things with you, Ryan, particularly drones. Like you mentioned, you were using drones. What does a professional basketball team do with drones? I'm just curious.
Let me just also add to what Chris said, and then I'll get to the drones.
Yeah, totally.
But we were the first sports team to actually broadcast a live game via virtual reality to not only a local children's hospital, but to a school in India. And so what we did was we set up the virtual reality camera next to Vivek and Chris, and these kids in India were able to see a live professional NBA game from the owner's seat. So that's an example of how, through technology, you can really expand the global input, your global footprint, and how we're trying to do stuff like that. Now, in terms of drones, yes, we were the first team to use drones, and it's one of those things where it's, let's just test this stuff, let's break it, let's see if there's a use case for it. And in fact, we actually did break a drone. One of the first times we took it into our practice facility, a player made a basket, it bounced back, and it knocked out the drone. And so there wasn't quite the use case in the practice facility for drones, but we did use drones as we were designing the arena. We had drones actually go up every couple days and take images of the arena so that we could track the progress and other things. And we are actually using drone technology today for security purposes.
Say more about that. Because actually, talk about security. Because meaning outside what people are gathering or something, just to understand.
Yeah, so we don't talk a lot about the security stuff. We've got a former head of the Secret Service who works with us on these issues. But people can use drones for a whole bunch of purposes, and our goal is to make sure that they're using them for the right purposes. And so that's what the drone detection system does.
When it comes to security, I also understand you have robot security, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so we have a night scope robot that patrols the outside of the arena. Those robots have about 32 sensors on them, so everything from facial recognition to thermal recognition. And what they're doing, what the robot does, is it's looking for anomalies, things that shouldn't be there, and it will alert us.
Interesting. And it literally goes around like a little R2-D2
Yeah,
thing,
so
or no?
it's...
Was that an image? There was an image in that video about it?
Yeah.
That is the nice way.
Yeah, so this is all driven by machine learning, right? So it doesn't go to the same place. It has its own mind in terms of where it goes throughout the arena 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the exception of when it stops and takes a break to recharge.
Very interesting. Has anyone ever just tackled the thing or done something kind of crazy with
Well,
it?
the funny story, funny story is when Adam Silver came to the arena, he and Vivek stood by it and they took a photo, and Adam Silver leaned on it, and the alarm went off. So there's an alarm on it.
We wanted to get the RoboCop voice, step away from the officer, but we didn't do that.
All right, a few last things in terms of a little more mundane, but on the other hand, important to other businesses as well. Analytics, big data kind of things. My understanding is the practice facility has video cameras all over, and every single shot and every practice is somehow recorded and analyzed. Say more about how that works.
I mean, yeah, that's been the focus for quite some time, and you know, everybody knows that sports analytics have developed, you know, to an extraordinary degree, and you see in you know, mainstream broadcasts more and more statistics going into all of these. But the key is how you use that to make your team better over time, and so, you know, recording every shot in the practice facility, being able to think about how these things get mapped out over time, and having a longitudinal picture of players in their own individual development, tracking that in the, you know, not just the basketball training facility, but also the weight room, you know, the force plates that we use to see how people are landing and reducing risks of injury. I mean, with one of our, you know, key players this coming year, Harry Giles, he had you know, three sets of knee surgeries, and you know, avoiding further injury is a key thing for Harry's development in the future, and we think that he can be, you know, unbelievable. And Willie Cauley-Stein said that he's an early favorite for Rookie of the Year this year. We'll see how that goes. But Harry was great in spring. But measuring all of that is a critical part, and you know, sort of getting ready for better performance by using these analytics. Ryan, you want to say some more about what all we've got?
Yeah, so you know, we're just as everything that we're doing on the fan side, we're also doing on the basketball side, and we're just always trying to quantify everything first, second, you know, using artificial intelligence to then extract more data from what we're already gathering, and then using that to, whether it's performance, injury prevention, you name it. Any little thing that will give us that competitive edge, not only on the fan side, but on the player side.
And then the scouting and kind of like, I mean, this region was made famous by Moneyball and kind of the A's pioneering, essentially, different ways to look at prospects and find the gems out there. Are you doing anything?
Yeah, there's a lot of fascinating stuff. And on the basketball side, we don't say too much, but I will say on the esports side, we actually worked with a PhD in artificial intelligence who actually came up with different algorithms to give us what the best makeup of our team should be based off the data that we had. The only issue was we didn't have a lot of data because it was the inaugural season of the 2K season team. But I'm confident that some of these algorithms that they have will make our esports team definitely better.
Any other business practices? For example, another pioneering, my understanding of pioneering Bay Area was the Giants. Kind of did things with dynamic pricing. Actually, do you want to explain to people who might not understand that, but also talk about the general idea of how that's been affecting sports?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is about, you know, predictive analytics and thinking about games that are going to be higher value, and having differential pricing, not just for the seats and where they sit, but for, you know, games themselves. And you know, pricing strategy is a challenge for any business to get this right. And you know, particularly when you move from an old arena to a new arena, you have to figure out how to make sure that it pays for itself over time, and that all the flows that were calculated in the debt service and everything else that goes into it. You know, you have to have the right analytical tools to get there, and ultimately you have to have the right pricing for selling the tickets, and you've got to build a big team that's very effective to assure that the sales, you know, come in at the right time and you get on the right plans, and it's all you know, an orchestration over time of those flows, and you know, the you know, experimenting in ways to do that better so that you can have a more predictable business and make it ultimately profitable and have, you know, plenty of cash to play the players and to operate the arena and ultimately to run a profit too, is something that all of us as business people are very focused on.
Now, basketball is a pretty simple game, as you mentioned. And like, whatever, 100 years ago when it started, you know, they put a bucket on a board and threw the ball at it, kind of thing. I mean,
Peach basket.
just anticipating what might be some people's questions out there. Do you think all this technology can sometimes potentially get in the way of just the experience of 10 human beings running up and down a floor, showing their beautiful, just the elegance of the game?
I think it absolutely could. I mean, if you had, drones, hip checking players, it would make the game a lot less fun. But the right application of technology to enhance the game and to enhance the experience of the game and the understanding of the game is something that we take as a significant part of our charge. And obviously, it's a very fast-paced environment. It's exciting. It moves very quickly, and we have some of the best athletes in the world who are eager to show off their stuff. And when you see these guys and how hard they work and how gracefully they move, even the some of the bigger, slower folks, it's a pretty incredible thing.
Totally. Do you find, you mentioned how all these teams are coming to you. So I'm just kind of thinking to broaden this before we do get into a larger discussion here with you folks. Do you see these trends happening in all these different sports? I mean, you guys are on the front edge of this, it looks like, but it looks like a lot of people are fast following different sports. If you had to look at the kind of the terrain of kind of sports out there, where are you seeing the most kind of interesting things going beyond basketball, or where do you think there's the most area to kind of improve? Any thoughts on kind of other sports and where they're going?
So definitely, I'm biased, but I do firmly believe that the NBA is at the forefront of innovation, and I think other sports are definitely following. Now, there's definitely a lot of these soccer teams that are doing in Europe that are doing some really cool stuff with athletic performance, and we've actually learned a lot from them. So there's a lot to learn. But I really keep an eye on esports because there's a lot to learn from esports and how that can be integrated into professional sports. But then also, all owners, all executives of these teams, they all want their fans to come to the game without any friction. They want the experience to be intuitive. They want them to be happy. Sometimes people ask, well, why do you have two 100 gig pipes coming into the facility? It's because fans want to be able to share that experience with their friends, and we don't want them to be upset because they can't upload an Instagram photo. If in our first year we had over 150 terabytes of data that went through the facility with the fans on their phones. That's equivalent to I think it's like 15 times all the information in the Library of Congress. So
all those selfies going out to the world.
It's selfies. It's selfies.
And
it's
we will get to exabytes and zettabytes
Yeah.
of information over time, particularly as more video flows through devices.
Yeah, and it's just, we want fans to come to the game. We want them to, Vivek will say, he wants to know whether or not they'll be upset before they know they'll be upset. Even if one of the first places I start on the tour is our entry system. And that was a data decision. We looked at the throughput of handheld scanners, the normal things that you see at some of the stadiums, and the throughput was 300 people per hour. These turnstiles that we have that are smart, they accept RFID, NFC, QR code, even facial recognition, they're 1,000 people per hour. So instead of having people stand in line being upset because they want to get to the game, we have no issues with lines at the arena. And I think every sports team out there should want the same thing. Fans should not have to wait to go to the restroom. They should not have to wait to get their food. They should not be upset if their kid drops a hot dog. The goal is so that our fans can have an amazing experience, have the best experience in the world, and watch the team perform.
And what technology have you developed to save that hot dog on the floor? Because that's the one.
So,
is that a solvable problem now?
It's definitely a solvable problem. in the arena, we have what's called mission control, and in mission control, we have over 15 stakeholders on any given night. And this doesn't exist anywhere else, but we've got people from social media, we've got people from guest services, security, all monitoring the fan experience. So whether a kid drops a hot dog, and in normal situation, a kid drops a hot dog and the kid wants another hot dog, parents upset, they have to go stand back in line, it's a bad experience. In our situation, a kid drops a hot dog, whether it's a human being from guest services or a fan mentioning it on social media or our robot spotting it, we know instantly that that hot dog was dropped, and we're able to deliver a hot dog within moments, not within minutes. So
eventually by drone.
So we talked about this on a TNT or something, and so the dropped hot dogs trended one time. So everyone is dropping their hot dogs. So let's not break Twitter doing this.
Could you do home delivery on that? That would be good. Wow, that's really interesting. Well, we're here. I mean, one of the reasons a lot of people are coming from around the world to this Capgemini here is for the Rugby Sevens here. And I know tomorrow, I think you're going to be involved in a day of a summit around the Rugby Sevens technology. Any advice here on if you were a kind of a emerging league, trying to go global, trying to get more high tech? I mean, where would you focus your energy first? Or is there any kind of thoughts on just the strategy or going forward? What advice would you give, I guess, is the last kind of question I'm asking before we go into everybody.
I think with anything, you just have to have big goals to define how you're going to put out your strategy and your tactics. Ours, of course, was on the fan side is to ensure that we had the best fan experience in the world, and then you work back from that. On the performance, on the team side, again, just as we're using all of this data and artificial intelligence. On the fan side, we're using it to improve player performance, prevent injuries, make the team more competitive. So we don't use technology for technology's sake. There's always an intent behind what we're doing.
Any last thoughts for you?
I mean, I think that this is supposed to be an easy and enjoyable experience, and one that is sort of anxiety relieving instead of anxiety inducing. And the little frustrations that people have are supposed to be able to shrink away so that you can watch these athletes do an amazing job of winning for our team, and hopefully we'll be able to see some more of that over time. We've had our challenging years, but I think we're on our way with the way that the last draft went, with Marvin Bagley coming to the team and having Harry and on our very young team getting a chance to have a lot of time on court this year.
Although I will say, for those that don't know much about basketball, the Western Conference
is tough.
And
it
it's
just
tough.
got
We got
tougher.
LeBron James just moved to the Lakers.
Best player in the game coming over the Western Conference.
Yeah,
and
it's going to be something.
Yep.
Anyhow, let's turn it over to questions from the audience here. I can look at it here, but I'm also interested in just putting your hands up. We have two mic runners, as is our custom. If you can stand up and just identify yourself as well as answer a question. Okay, let's do one here, and then we'll go back here, and we'll start getting around here. Oop, does someone have a mic there? Just give a little who you are.
Yeah, so Jonathan Miranda, I help run strategy at Salesforce. A question I have for you guys is around balancing personalization and trust, right? For example, facial pay is a technology a lot of companies have. They haven't dabbled too much into it because they're trying to understand that. How do you guys make decisions on using data and all these kinds of technologies and still keeping the trust of your fans?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is about transparency at the end of the day, and being able to speak publicly about what you're doing and what you're not. And that's one of the things that, having had to navigate those issues for Facebook before stepping into, this more premise-based system that we have. Transparency actually solves, 95% of the problems. And allowing people to give feedback and say that does in fact creep me out. I'm not comfortable with that. But also being able to articulate why you're using the technology for these purposes, and that for integrating the possibility for facial recognition into the turnstiles is ultimately it's supposed to be about ease in ticketing and flow into the arena, and as long as that's articulated and that there are expected use restrictions over what we would do with that information over time, that people generally find their way to comfort about all of this. And I do think that particularly when you're talking about public places and places that are presumed public, there are different standards that apply about people's knowledge that everybody else. If you go to an arena with 17,500 people, the expectation that somebody's not going to see you is pretty low.
By the way, we have another. Did you have any thoughts on? Or you're good? We can go to the other question here.
I agree with everything Chris said. I don't really want to talk too much about privacy, but we do have facial recognition for our players. We've had that for 2 years now, and we have the ability to deploy it at any moment for our fans. Our concern was there was just so much technology that we wanted to ease our fans into this. And so whether we can continue on that process this year or next year, we have the ability, we know where it's going, but our goal is just to really do good with the data, where there's nothing nefarious behind it. The goal is to improve the fan experience.
Let's go here, and then I will say, folks, those of you putting in questions through this app, you're awesome. And we're going to go to you in a second here. But let's first go to this guy here who raised his hand.
Very good. Congratulations on a great concept over there. So my name is Mikko. I come from Finland, and I really wait the same concept to come to the ice hockey arenas. I totally see the whole thing. I have a question on the technology side. Given the pace, how fast technology evolves, so what will be your first focus point on replacing or evolving the current technologies that you have in the arena?
I mean, I'll say first, at a super high level, the design that Ryan and his team drove was all about future-proofing the arena and having easy replacement for things that were likely to be replaced, and just the ability to kind of upgrade everything over time. But I'll let Ryan say more about the particulars.
Yeah. So when we opened the arena, we didn't want it to be the most technologically advanced on opening day. We wanted it to be 5 years, 10 years. And not just so that we could be the most technologically advanced arena, but so that we could deliver the best fan experience and put the best performance on the court, et cetera. So we were fortunate enough to have people like Chris and Vivek and Paul Jacobs, so that when we were designing the arena, we met with some of the top engineers in the country who were defining where communication technology is going. And so we were able to see the roadmap 5 years out, 10 years out. So although we deployed 802.11ac WAPs in the bowl, we also prepared it for small cells. And we put in extra fiber and extra copper to ensure that we could adapt and build in terms of that connectivity. And again, as I mentioned, we designed it so that we could future-proof and scale. So in our data center, the reason why we were able to mine Ethereum is because we had extra capacity in our data center. And when you go to any other arena or stadium that was just freshly built, they've already run out of capacity. And so, when you're making these decisions early on, do we have a 6,000 square foot facility, or do we have what we need for the next 2 years? We erred on the side of let's be prepared and let's make sure that we could future-proof and scale.
All right. Definitely you can throw your hands out here, but let's go to a couple folks here that I thought put in some really interesting questions. There have been a couple questions about gambling, and so is there someone called Axel Flatrace Bertolo? If that's you, could you get a, and then there's another gambling question here that if you don't do it, I'm going to, go ahead. Say your thing.
Hello everyone, so I'm Axel and I work here at the AIE, the Applied Innovation Exchange. My question was around the esports, and I was wondering if we could consider America as a big esports player in the esports background in the world.
I mean, I think at this point it's moving into it. Although, I mean, you've seen a lot of that come out of South Korea and a lot of action in Europe as well. But I think we are seeing a massive move to esports in America right now. The NBA 2K League is part of that. I think we'll see. It's been fascinating to me to see. Obviously, Overwatch leagues, sort of dominate in some ways, but the risk of having something set up, or Overwatch or League of Legends, were the two that really broke through, but Fortnite breaking through in such rapidity, and I have a almost 10-year-old and an almost 8-year-old. And my almost 10-year-old, knows about Fortnite, knows about everything. He's not playing because we don't let him yet. He's got. We're not a no screen time household, but we're a limited screen access and limited games. But the speed at which these new things develop is pretty stunning.
This woman, let's go to the woman in the back there.
Hi, I'm Sally Ann, and I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, but I crossed the border, and I'm living in Menlo Park now. And I run a software company. But my question to you guys is more around, you see a lot of new technologies, obviously for the sports entertainment world, the professional sports, but I bet you guys also see a lot of really good new stuff coming out for the sports participation world. And I'd love to hear what you guys think will be the new to support and encourage sports participation.
Yeah, so one of the things that we did early on is we created a startup contest called Capitalize. So we were the first sports team to actually have a pitch contest. And once again, it was to help out and promote the community. And so every year, and it's gotten bigger and bigger, we throughout the community, we have these companies come in, we train them, we teach them how to put a deck together, we bring other community members in from VCs, et cetera, to help these startups come in, present. They then present, they make it past the first round, and then ultimately they end up presenting before 17,500 fans their ideas. And so what happens is the fans actually pick the winner. And then there's a monetary award, and then we support them as they continue. And so we've had a bunch of interesting companies go through. One company that we found, they actually take all the food waste and they turn that into fertilizer. So all the food waste from the arena now goes to this company. They turn it into fertilizer, and it goes back into the food ecosystem. So we see a lot of these different technology companies, fortunate to have people like Chris send a lot of them our way, but we're also seeing it on the ground in Sacramento. And so I think in terms of any technology that augments the fan experience is where this is going. There's lots of stuff out there to ensure that fans have a better experience at the games.
By the way, she also put a nice. You asked your question through the app too, so it was a great twofer. And I know for a fact that your company is in the sports participation space, basically, right? So I misread who the gambling. There's a couple gambling things, but Lawrence Wilkinson had a really interesting gambling question. Do you want to kind of give your question to the crowd here with the mic?
Yeah, hi. Yeah. No, I'm just curious. One of the arenas or one of the areas from which technology is coming for sports, it seems, is gaming, gambling. As it's been coming for a while. Fantasy sports has had an impact, but it's now being legalized in a cascading number of states. What impact do you think that's going to have on team sports like yours, but more broadly on professional sports in general?
So,
good question.
I mean, the extensive gambling that already goes on professional sports, some legal, some not, it's sort of been out there and been a major part of the game for quite some time, and around the game, and the leagues have deployed a variety of countermeasures against that driving really unhealthy behavior like point shaving or things like that. Luckily, I mean, a lot of us, I think, come to the league as realists, and Adam Silver, our commissioner, has said that the NBA is generally supportive of properly regulated sports gambling, and so, which is exactly where my head is and where our ownership, group is, and we'd like to think about how that gets deployed in a safe and comfortable way over time, and that it replaces the illegal gambling that still goes on right now. And with the Supreme Court decision that allows states to take their own actions, I think you'll see a lot more interesting implementations of this in the coming year or a couple of years. So I think that obviously the key is to protect the integrity of the game, and I know that the NBA has been in conversations with a number of different legal gambling providers about how integrity fees can be part of that, and assuring that there's a deep knowledge and understanding about the way that both the what can be bet on and how that is tracked, and that any possible analytics can be used very well to find any unhealthy behavior in the new systems that develop.
By the way, are there any folks from the rugby? Brett Gosper here, or any of the folks from the rugby league that had any questions too? I just want to make sure we get to you guys. I know there's a few over here, but anyhow, other than that, let's see other hands here. Just want to throw it out there. How about this back here?
Hi, I'm Brady Campbell. I also work with Axel here at the AIE. And I'm actually from NASCAR country. I grew up in North Carolina, and that's a super interesting sport to me because the decline in fan participation is remarkable over the last 6 years. They're losing 2/3 of their fan participation every year. So how do you view what you're doing? And what's interesting, I guess I should say, is your stadium, I looked it up, seats 17,000, and Bristol Motor Speedway seats 162,000. It's the smallest speedway there is. Does something like what you all are doing, is it to a certain extent successful because of that scale, that very high touch, small scale? And is it something that can scale to an industry like NASCAR, which desperately needs help, which leads to my second question. Are you all in touch with them? Because they could probably benefit from chatting with you.
So I have not been in touch with anyone from NASCAR, although I have been to a couple of NASCAR events and as well as some Formula One events, and you see some real there's community that's built in all of those experiences. Now with the speed of the cars and you need a size of a track that almost sort of says that you're going to be at 130,000 and up to 500,000 people. And if you look at Indy or you look at some of the other speedways, I'm not sure what's driven the decline. I mean, it was obviously an incredibly popular, very American sport that grew like a weed over the years, and then the last few years it seems to have really hit a wall. There was actually quite a bit of deployment of technology in terms of allowing views from the drivers' cars, allowing people at the track to have real-time monitors and sort of great, fairly fantastic fan experiences with technology to understand what was going on. If you're watching a car from afar, it would be pretty cool to see the driver's view. You would think, and I just don't know how they've kind of hit a wall on that front. But the scale at which we operate, it is important to have. We have the largest lower bowl in the NBA, which was an important design principle for us. So you fit 10,000 people in our lower bowl. So there's an upper ring, and we've got suites and lofts and all sorts of options, which are important for thinking about finance and making sure that you can pay for the arena and run the team profitably. But ultimately, you're trying to drive this great fan experience, and by driving more seats into the lower bowl, you have a better fan experience so that more people can get closer to the action.
Any thought on that?
Yeah. So.
Has NASCAR been? Are they one of the 150 people that have?
Well, we.
organizations come to you?
I don't think NASCAR has been to our arena, but I actually did go to NASCAR to learn early on, how we could utilize some of the, their best practices for our arena. But I think at the end of the day, basketball is very unique because it is truly a sport where you have 17,000 people who can get close and really see. Our players aren't wearing any masks or helmets or anything like that. They're not behind a car. So when you come to a Kings game and you see Marvin Bagley or Darren Fox or LeBron James, you are literally 100 feet to 200 feet from them. And so it's very intimate. So there's lots of benefits, and that's why the NBA is a growth sport. But I also think that people are coming to the Kings games, despite we haven't had the best record recently, but they are still coming, and we are sold out every night. And as part of it is that experience. It is that experience of entering the plaza and seeing all of the interactions that are going on. Like, we are an experienced company. And so it's not only watching the game, but it's everything before the game and after the game and everything we've done to remove all of that friction from that experience, but to really give people, an exceptional experience, to create spectacles constantly. That Little John concert was amazing, where after the game, people come to the game, but after the game, they walk outside, and on the plaza, you've got Little John playing next to our art piece, the Jeffrey Coons coloring book, and he's playing out to a crowd of 10,000 people, and there's people on the inside, there's people on the bridge, there's people on the outside. It's an experience, and it's a spectacle.
And the bridge that Ryan mentions is, the Sierra Nevada, brew house up at the top of the arena where the doors sort of fold up into, and it turned into amazing. I did not watch it from there. I was up closer, but I could look back and see people just really, soaking in the atmosphere after watching a couple of great games of basketball to get this started. For Summer League and something that had never existed in Las Vegas, where Summer League is primarily run, you'll get. It's in the Thomas and Mack Center and the Cox Center next to it. 2 courts in Las Vegas, and you usually have 2,000 or 3,000 people in a 10,000 person arena, or 3,000 people in a 10,000 person arena. We were sold out for 3 nights of Summer League with just 4 teams playing around. So,
and despite how you go to most places, whether it's airports or any place, and everyone is looking at their phone, and in this audience, very few people have actually looked at their phone. People want to be together. They want this communal experience. And our job is to ensure that we create the best experience for them. And we're an experienced company, and we're constantly trying to improve, trying different things, trying to push the envelope to enhance that experience.
Let's get a question here, and then I got someone off of here in a second too.
Hi,
Could
Phil.
you stand up and just introduce yourself?
Sure, Phil Mitchell with Vision Science Labs. You talked a little bit about how you use technology to enhance the player's performance, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the things you're doing that are particularly innovative.
For player performance.
For player performance, yes.
I mean, I think a lot of it has been helping them understand longitudinally their performance and where they might be weak and what they might want to work on. I mean, a lot of that just is establishing a great feedback loop with technology, so that these very expert athletes can kind of, find their own weaknesses and what they need to work on. But and then a lot of it is also about the injury prevention and thinking about where there might be risk in that. And Ryan, you want to add to?
Yeah, there's so much amazing technology out there, and we're utilizing all of that. I often get ahead of myself because I try not to talk about it, because it is a competitive advantage for us. But just as you see, and as we've talked about all the technology that we're using on the fan side, there's really cool from, this is where I get ahead of myself, but just as you can quantify yourself through whether it's 23andMe or Biome, et cetera, you can also do that on the performance side. And there's lots of really cool things to measure and quantify everything that you're doing, whether it's these missile tracking cameras that we have during the game or through the practice. Players are able to look at this data and get better because they know where their hot spots are, where their weak spots are. We know as a team which players are coming in at 2 in the morning and practicing and where they're making their shots. And so the game is obviously every day, just as our fan experience gets better, the entire NBA is getting better because of the way that teams are using a lot of this new technology.
David Alvarado, good question through here. So stand up and restate it for everybody with a mic.
Yeah,
And
hey,
introduce yourself. And
I'm David Alvarado.
yeah, but here, a little full disclosure here.
Yeah.
Last, say what you did last event.
Sure. So I'm one of the directors of the Stewart Brand documentary. We had this really great event here last time, and it was just fantastic to see this group of people come together. So I had a question, though. I'm not a sports fan. At all, like could not care less. But I love technology, and what you guys are talking about is so interesting, and so it just made me think, to what degree are you guys trying to not just make the fan experience better, current fans better experience, but trying to create new sports fans? Is that a part of your guys' thinking? I mean, because if you let me see like a drone in 3D hover over a basketball game, I might watch my first basketball game.
well, that's pretty great. I think it's obviously working, right? I do think that being able to translate the emotional commitment that fans have to the game and that the players have to the game is a core part of what we're presenting and the experience that we're presenting to people. So yeah, we are evangelizing every day about how important competition and healthy striving and the desire to win is a part of that experience that we think more people should embrace.
And again, I go back to esports and everything that we're learning from esports. And then there was a question about betting. We have a section in our app because we knew that this was eventually going to happen called Call the Shot, where fans have the ability and they can bet on for points that they can then use for experiences. Who makes the most free throws, et cetera. But there will be a time when people may not be, they may come through us through esports or some other avenue, but you may be able to bet on whether a player is wearing one shoe or another shoe. In addition to everything else that you'll be able to bet on with these games.
Okay, by the way, we're getting to the point where there's going to be food trucks a little bit later for everybody. We're getting close to the end here, but let's hang on for a few more questions. Go ahead in the back here.
Yeah, thank you. Is this on? Yeah. Hi, Chris. Hi, Ryan. Luke James, Sports Innovation Network. So 2 questions. Following on from this one, first of all, when you create the new arena, how much of it was build it and they will come, and how much was actually we're looking for a whole new audience of fans that don't engage with sport previously? The second one, Ryan, you talk about experience. When you're sat around in your boardroom saying we have drones, we're going to have Ethereum mining, all this, how do you quantify a return on these experiences? And how much of it is actually, let's try it because it's cool, and there's a new audience, and how much is strategic saying we know in 5 years' time this is our audience and this will make a return?
Well, I mean, we knew as we looked at the team and the situation that we got into that the Kings fans were incredibly passionate and that we had a base that was incredible. And in Sacramento, we're the only full league professional sports team. There's a AAA baseball team. There's a soccer team that has not yet achieved MLS certification. But the passion that we see in the fan base was instantaneous, and it was something that we all had deep comfort with, knowing that there was a deep base there. But we always want to be reaching out to new people. You always have to think about how audiences evolve over time. And in my other businesses, I spend a lot of time on media with streaming service called Fandor is one of my companies, and MoviePass is another one of my companies. And I've got some other kind of plays in that space. And the way that people think about their entertainment time is changing in very radical ways and very quickly, in part because we have these amazing supercomputers that we hold in our hand called smartphones, and they talk to these amazing supercomputers in the cloud that are great at modeling and providing more and more information in the form of video, in the form of games, in the form of various series that develop, and movies, and all the different things that you can choose from. And we want the emotional connection that people have to sport to carry forward, and we want parents to be able to pass that on to their kids, and we want kids to be able to enlist their parents in those processes, in those enjoyments over time. So we're both. We knew that there was a very deep fan base of Kings fans to serve, but we're always looking for more.
Yeah, and with regards to the pushing the envelope with the different technologies, we didn't know exactly how Bitcoin was going to be used, and we're not quite sure where the exact application that blockchain will follow, but we know that fans will be using a digital currency at some point. So we better figure it out now than wait for it to happen to us. With regards to drones, we just thought the technology was amazing because you could see the whole world from a different perspective. And so when we pushed the limits to bring the drones into the arena, but we realized it really wasn't a safe experience. But out of that came, we've got a drone racing competition that's actually taking place tomorrow at the Golden One Center, where we got the best drone racers throughout the world coming to Sacramento, flying through our plaza, through the arena for points and a grand prize. So, out of these experiments comes something. Again, with digital currency, who would have thought that we'd be able to create this thing called mining for good and give back to the community? With virtual reality, we knew that there would be an application, but there was an application where we actually sold out our suites and lofts. So,
have you seen your fan demographic change then since the new arena?
That's interesting.
I think we have the smartest, most tech-savvy fan group out of any sports team in the world. We've got fans who are coming in and excited and want to learn about technology, and they know that this is the place where they're going to see technology firsthand.
Last few questions here. There's a question here. Could you stand up?
Two quick questions.
Could you introduce yourself?
Scott Armanini. I'm a venture advisor, investor myself. You talked about success and having the best fan experience, but you didn't talk about how you quantify it, the box score. So that's one question. And then the other one has to do with, if you think about the proliferation of esports and how there's such an engaged audience that's outside of the arena, what are you doing, if anything, in order to take that arena experience and extend it out to the people who are at home?
All right. So on the latter question, I mean, some of it is in these virtual reality experiments that we've been running. And I do think that you'll see over time, where people can't make the game, that they'll want a deeper, more immersive play in that front. And I got my Oculus Go recently, and I do give my kids some time on that, and they're into it, and they're thinking they're actually more fishing. They're doing fishing games through the virtual reality through the Oculus Go headset right now more than watching NBA. But the over time, I mean, I do think that there the way that people think about how they allocate their time for entertainment and for great emotional experiences is changing, because consumers are becoming radically empowered to make their own choices, and they're being given these different platforms that they can choose from to have these experiences at any given time. So we want to provide that great arena experience outside the arena too, in those platforms. So that is part of what we're trying to drive, and then ultimately, the process of developing a deeply successful on-court team is a years-long process at this point. And we knew that when we came to the league, and we knew that we had to make sure that we got the best advisors, and we built the best sort of basketball operations that we could, so that we could think in the long run. And of course, I think particularly people coming out of the technology industry, we like success yesterday, and we're very have extraordinarily high expectations about how quickly things can be done, but it is a process, and we knew that going in, and we've been working it quite extensively. But I will say that a lot of the East Coast media was a little bit down on where we've been and where we're going, but they asked Vlade, our general manager, what we're going to do with the super teams, and this was before it was clear that LeBron was coming to the Lakers. Although I think a lot of us, me included, thought that was almost a foregone conclusion that he would come to the Lakers in particular, in the Western Conference in general. But Vlade said, he's like, they said, well, what are you going to do with all these super teams? He says, I have a super team. They're just young. And that's the way you have to think about this. And I think that we've gone deep on the guys, on Harry, who we took at the 20th pick. 2 years ago, and then he didn't play a minute that year, but he practiced with the team all year so that he could be ready to jump right in. And Summer League was the California Classic, the second game of the California Classic. 2 Mondays ago was the first time that he played on a regular NBA court in a game. And but he'll be fantastic this year. And thinking about Marvin Bagley, and obviously we had to look at a pretty deep draft class, and luckily we ended up with the second pick, and that gave us a great set of options. I'm taking De'Aaron Fox at the 5th pick last year. We've been building for the future.
You can talk. We're going to be over dinner. You can go way deep in the weeds with Chris on all the draft picks there. I thought, let's give last question to Benoit Odegair. I mean, all these French names are very difficult for me to who is that? But it's a great question, and it sounds like you are from Benoit, from France.
Exactly.
And congrats on the
right?
World Cup, which is what your question was about, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, sure. My question was about the video interfering with the referee's decision during a game, because we've seen that during the World Cup, and there was a lot of debates around this. So I wanted to see, what is your opinion on this? Do you want to go towards that direction in the NBA, or the opposite?
It's an interesting tech question, because the ability's there. So that's a question. Where will you tech guys go on that question? It's a good one.
I mean, the NBA process of replay review is fairly well defined. And it moves reasonably quickly. Although from time to time, it drags out, and you'll see, the pressure's on the refs in that circumstance. They've got to bring up a screen on court, and the sort of the huddle that they do to talk amongst themselves and figure out the call and work with the replay officials in Secaucus, where the center is. Obviously the links are fast enough to handle all of that. They get a lot of real-time communication. It's an established process. I think that they've done it reasonably well in making sure it's not overused, and setting rules around that and the way that it operates. So I think for the most part it enhances the game. Although it was interesting, in our first season we had a fascinating kind of replay set where there may have been a tipped ball, but you couldn't necessarily tell on an inbound pass, where we got beat by the Grizzlies in Memphis and on a random thing. And we went deep in the weeds and actually appealed it, and lost that appeal. But it was generally speaking, it moves along fast enough and doesn't interrupt most of the action.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Ryan? I mean, just to push it. I mean, with all those video cameras and AI and all that, why couldn't you have almost instantaneous calls beyond human error? And is that a good thing?
Well, amazingly, in the 2K game, there are no referees.
Right. Fouls get called.
Yeah, fouls get called.
Right.
You know, all this stuff happens.
Right.
So
By the machine.
by the machine.
Yes.
What do you think? Is that where it might be going?
I don't comment on NBA policy like that. I only want to comment on the cool stuff. So.
Anyhow, folks, I think let's give a great hand for these two.
Thank you so much.
Let's put a great. And I will just say as a reminder, Capgemini, as always, gracious hosts. They've actually got food trucks here for us to have food and more drinks and plenty of time to talk to the speakers here and amongst yourself. Let's have a great evening and conversation continue.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.